Hello everyone. This video is part of a series where we are implementing a microservices-based social media application, and our main goal is to learn the microservices pattern. We are also interested in the main challenges that come with microservices, as well as some of the best practices and some solutions regarding or related to microservices and the challenges, right? So here is a quick overview of our current and our planned tasks for the near future. There is, of course, much more than this, but this is just a brief overview so that you have a better idea of what we are, or a better idea of what we are going to work on. This is a more detailed breakdown. So if you want to pause the video here and examine the subtasks, you can also do so. Here is our Jira board, and I often come back here to track the progress of our tasks. And if you are following the videos, you may have noticed that a few tasks start to disappear from here, and that's because Jira removes them once they spend some time on this column, right? But here is our backlog, and we will for sure go back to our backlog so that we can continue working on other user stories. In the previous video, we have added we added a NodeEnv or a production environment to our application so that now we can send actual emails outside of our local server if we have to, right? So within or during our development, we will mostly stay within our server or within our local host, because we just don't want to consume the quota of the service that provides this functionality for sending emails. Like, sending it to our local server is enough, right? One thing that I want to do is, if you remember previously, let me go back here. I think it was in the types file. I removed this send email from here. So it was a couple of videos ago, and I was discussing that it didn't make sense to implement some properties that were supposed to be private to the classes, right? Because the classes, they should implement only, or the interfaces should mention only the methods that must be visible to the external world from a class perspective, right? So me as a class, or I as a class, want to expose methods X and Y to the world so that they can call methods X and Y. But how I internally store information and compute the result of these methods X and Y doesn't matter. The external world doesn't need to know anything about it. So I want to continue doing a little bit of changes here, because as it turns out, I forgot our errors class, right? So if I come back here to the base custom error, I have a bunch of protected fields, and I don't like them, or these two. I don't like these fields, right? Because it doesn't matter how the classes or how the custom error classes store the status code internally or store the default error message internally, as long as they have the methods to get the status code and to serialize the error output, I am more than happy with these classes. So let's remove these two methods here. And before we go any further, just let me see if I removed it from the mock email API. Yes, I did in the two videos ago, I think. Yeah, so the mock email API is already corrected. So let's continue with our errors here, and let's fix our errors. So this status code now can be private, right? And this default error message can also be private. So now I don't need to make them protected. I was a little bit unsatisfied with the protected, and then I started to think again, and okay, we can just make them private. It doesn't matter whether I store this as a status code or whether I store this as a status like so, as long as the get status code method returns returns a number, the internal representation doesn't matter. Now in the invalid input, I will also make this private. I will also make this private, and I'll make this private. Okay, so I will ignore the this small warning here. Not warning, I mean just a suggestion from my IDE saying that we can make this field read only because it's initialized in the constructor, If you want to, maybe make it read-only like so, and I'll put it below here just so that we have a well-structured structure here. Yeah, a well-structured class, right? All the class or all the variables that are not read-only can come at the top, and then, or let's make it even better, let's put the read-onlys at the top and then the non-read-onlys at the bottom. And I think that that's it from my errors. So let me see if I can think of anything else here. If I inspect or if I look into the side here, the base custom error, I removed these things, and then these other errors here. So the serialized error output is the same. Tests don't change anything. And the other one that I want to adjust is the authentication, or sorry, the events, right? So the base auth event doesn't need to have a status code. I mean, doesn't need to have the attribute status code. It needs to have the get status code method. So in here I can mark this status code as private as well, like so. And then I think that I'm done with the cleanup. Okay, yes, this was a quick video. Let me just run the prettier fix here and the linting. I think that there are no major problems. Let's give it a couple of seconds. Yeah, no additional problems. So now I can just add everything, and I'll just commit this as a refactor. That's going to be auth, and this is going to be what? Cleanup classes, right? Just brief general message, doesn't really matter. We're just doing some cleanup here. As you can see, a lot of the structure of the things we implement change, right? And this is because as we see the application grow, we can identify issues with our implementation. And as we read more about this, or as I also do some more research about this to bring you always some best practice code, right? I also run into these details that I start to realize once I look at the class for the 10th time, right? Maybe for the first time and you say, okay, makes sense, yeah, protected, okay, I don't make it available to the external world. But then when I look it again and again and again, and I start to think about the definition and what it means to implement an interface and what an interface means, then we start realizing these small improvements that we can make towards more standard or more best practice, quote unquote, like so, best practice code, right? So good, that's it for this video. And if you want to be notified every time or whenever I upload the next videos, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. You'll get a small notification every time I upload a new video. So thank you for your time and see you in the next video. Bye bye.